Hello, welcome to the next Gren Twigs video. I realize the past few have been longer than normal. I apologize for that. I realized that it was taking me longer to make shorter videos, and that combined with some other things meant I just wasn't getting them out. So I want to start getting them out regularly, which means I am doubling down on what I said way back when I started these, which is I have to keep these as low effort as possible. And that means I am not going to try to redo or pare down video if I think it's too long. So if they're too long for you, I'm sorry. I do plan to someday get to the point where I can blog about this stuff, but that takes even longer than making a video. So we'll see. For this one, I am going to talk about regular expressions, and I'm going to pick up where I left off on the last video, where we were doing some TDD to test drive a palindrome module. And I ended with one that tries to handle punctuation. And you can see the test is failing because madam is not being recognized as a palindrome, even though it should be. I'm going to go and add a little bit more punctuation here just to really hammer home the way this thing should work. So the way we're going to do this, the way we're going to make this test pass is with regular expressions. And even if you're familiar with regular expressions, there's a little bit of minor additional complexity with Gren, which I'll get to. But first, you're going to want the regex module, which is string.regex. I'm going to alias that as regex. I'm also going to pull in the type. All right, now we can start writing regular expressions. So I'm gonna pull up a REPL here to talk about regular expressions in Gren. So in Gren, you create a regular expression. You know, some languages just let you do this. Some languages have a function that just spits out a regular expression. In Gren, we have a function called, well, I have to import it here too. Hold on. Okay. In Gren, we have a function called fromString. So you give it a string. So there is a regular expression type. To make it, you start with a string and give it whatever you want. You can see we don't have a regular expression type. We have a maybe regular expression type, and that's because when you make a regular expression, you don't always know that it's a real regular expression. Like this is good, A, S, D, or F. It's a valid regular expression. This is not. You can see here it gave us nothing. So because a regular expression can either be valid or invalid, similar to an email address. Now let me actually use that as the analogy here. If I was working with an email address in my code, I want to make sure that it's a valid email address. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to just pass around a string and hope that at some point I validated that this string is an email address. I really want an email type. So having a function that takes a string and turns it into the email type, and having that be really the only way I can get that email type, means if I have an email value, I know it's valid for sure, no matter where it is in the code. So similar to here, I can only get a regular expression using this. There might be another function to make a regular expression. Let's see. So it's in, man, I'm glad I started this video with, I'm going to do these really off the top of my head in one take because I'm kind of rambling. Yeah, fromString, okay, and then fromString with, and then never. So those are the three ways to get a regular expression. You're almost always going to use fromString. If you have some additional options you want to pass, like make it case insensitive, multi-line, you can use fromString with. Or if you want a regular expression that never matches, you would use this. Why would you ever want this? Well, we'll see very soon. Anyway, since those are the only ways to get this regular expression type, you can't just make one yourself. That means if you have a regex, you know it's valid. You know I am working with a valid regular expression. And so that means you'll have to handle the case where it is invalid and tell Gren what to do, because Gren can't match on an invalid regular expression, so we'll have to write some code to handle that. So that's that extra little bit of complexity that I talked about. However, it is going to, like many things in Gren, it's going to help you write code that, yes, it might be a little quote unquote easier in some other languages to do this because you can just get your regular expression and use it. But it's only easier because you're allowed to ignore problems that might happen later. So Gren won't let us do that. We're going to have, we're forced to handle that, and it's going to end up with code that's a lot more correct, a lot easier to maintain. And as you'll see, it's ultimately not that much harder. All right, now that my long spiel is over, let's actually see what it looks like to use regular expressions. So we're importing it. And what I'm going to want is, for this case, is a regular expression that matches anything. This might be overreaching, but I think what we're going to want is, let's look at my test again. I think we're going to want something that just matches anything that's not a letter or a number so that we can get rid of it. Yeah, because we're even going to want to get rid of spaces and stuff. Let's go with that, and we can write more tests if we think that that's not going to be the right way to go. So I'm going to make a regular expression that matches non-alphanumeric characters. And the way I'm going to do that is with my fromString function. So we'll match a group of characters that are not A through Z, capital A through Z, or 0 through 9. And one or more of those. Great. Now, if you remember, this is going to give us a maybe, not a regex. So Gren won't even compile if I try to stop here. What I have to do is say what to do in the case of a maybe. So in a real program, you might want to, you might even want to end the program and say, oh, there's a problem here. I can't go any further. But what we're going to do, and what you will probably end up doing quite a bit, is use a function in the maybe module called with default. This is the closest thing I think Gren has to like an unwrap function. And it just says, hey, if you have a value here, if we have just the regular expression, give me the regular expression. If we have nothing, give me something else. And so what I'm going to say is that something else is going to be regex.never. So remember when we saw that function, that's a way to always give you a regular expression that just never matches anything. What that's going to do is say, if we screwed up our regular expression, our program, it won't crash, we won't get an exception, we just won't get the logically correct thing that we expect, and in which case our test will continue to fail and we'll figure out what's wrong with our regular expression. So let me go back to our running tests here, still feeling great. Now let's use that regular expression. So here we have a string that we've made all lowercase, which meant I probably could have had a simpler regular expression, but I'm not going to do that. And we'll say replace. So there's a handful of functions we can use. Once we have a regular expression, we can use the regular expression to see if something contains that regular expression. We can split on it, find it. We're going to use replace, which takes a regular expression. It takes the returned match and responds with a string. So this is like the replace function. So if I have a regular expression, do something with the match, that returns a new string, give it the string that I'm trying to match on, and it gives you the updated string. Okay, so our regex that we want to use is non-alphanumeric characters. The function we want to use, we don't actually care about the match value, so we're just going to use an underscore and say replace it with an empty string. And the string we're acting on is the string that's being passed in, so we don't actually have to explicitly give that. And now we have a passing test. Great. It worked. We're going to end the video there. I have no idea how long it was. I apologize if it's like 35 minutes or something. I will see you next time.